Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to another session for setup part. So this time we will be installing Minikube. So Minikube is basically a single node Kubernetes cluster which is used for testing and learning purpose. So for the audience which are not aware with the Kubernetes, it is like you can consider it as an container orchestration tools. Like a tool which will take cares of your container. So be it like starting them, stopping them, or doing health check, or wanted to perform some task with those containers and all. Okay. So in today's video, we will be setting up Minikube. So as a part of a prerequisite, we need to have Vagrant installed in our system. Okay, and let me explain you about the Minikube setup.sh. So basically, like we are updating the system dependencies with these two commands, and then we will be installing Docker as a service. Post this, we will be installing kubectl. So basically, kubectl is a command line interface which will, help us to interact with our cluster, and it will also provide us some viable information like with the commands and all. So this is a command line interface which we need to use for our Kubernetes cluster, and then followed by like installation of Minikube. So this is quite simple and straightforward user data script. So let's get on with the installation. Again, we will be using Ubuntu 24.01. So let me just on the insert mode. And we will be updating the configuration related settings. So since I'm using this one only, it is already uncommented, so we can skip this part. And let's spin up our VM. So one more thing, for Minikube, we may need additional memory and CPU. So just give me a moment. If I go here and type Minikube, yeah, see, so even in the installation instruction, it is mentioned that we may need additional CPUs and memories. So no worries, we will do that. It is asking for the network bridge, so I have provided the network bridge. So first of all, we will spin up the VM, and I'll show you like how to check the memory and CPU stats for this, and then like we will try to increase it. So still it is setting it up for us. Right. So we are done. Let's connect with Vagrant SSH. Okay, so now I'm into VM. So I'll show you how do we check the stats. So there is command called VM stat -a. Okay, also VM state is the command, and -a I'm passing it as an option. So it will show us like what is the stats of your process, memory, input, output, and system. Alright, let me do this VM state -s. So this will show us the total available memory. So this is the default memory which is provided by the Vagrant box itself. Let's see the CPU. So for CPU, 2 only, this one. Alright, so will increase. So let me exit from here and we'll re-edit our vagrant file. Alright, and just go to this memory section, this one. So we need to uncomment this one followed by the end part as well, otherwise the block will not complain and it will give us some compilation. So for memory it is right now pointing to 1 GB only. Let's do it 4 GB. That will do, and we will be adding one more line for the CPU. So like we'll do vp.cpus. So always remember, not CPU, it should be CPUs, otherwise you will run into an error. So let's do it. Let me add 4 for the time being. Just escape it and try to save the setting, and we'll do vagrant reload. Since we have updated the configuration, so it is always good to run this command so that it can accommodate the recent changes. So let it complete and then we'll proceed. Now see, it is saying that we need to run this one as well. Since we have updated the configuration, so it is asking us to run this vagrant provision. So let's run this as well. And now let's connect with our vagrant box with vagrant SSH. So we are into VM again now. VM. So no, we'll try with -s so that we can get to see whether the changes are updated. So anyways, we can see that it is showing an increment. Let's see, check for the CPU as well. lscpu is the command. Yes, so CPU also ends. Okay, we are good. So let me become the root user, and we will try to run our user data script for Minikube setup. Let's on the insert mode quickly and just copy whatever we have covered for the setup parts. Alright, so let me just quickly save it and let's run this. So basically, if you have a look at the installation, it is straightforward. What we need is Docker, and then we are installing kubectl and Minikube. So why we are installing Docker? Because Minikube, for Minikube we need one driver. So driver could be your Docker, it could be your Podman, it could be your hypervisor like QEMU, and it could be your HyperKit as well. So we need to provide one driver. So in our case, we are starting it with Docker as a driver. Alright, so let it run. It will not take much time. So even you will also get to see the information regarding this in this setup part. See, like in the documentation also it is referring that what driver you need. So Docker, it should be QEMU, then HyperKit and all the other stuff. All right. So like we are done with this one. Let me just check for, okay. So I'm just checking whether our installation is up or not. So all right. So now if we do Minikube status, so like Minikube is installed, but like we need to, in order to start our cluster, we need to use Minikube start. Now for Minikube start, since we are root user, either we can like start it with the hyphen force option, or else we can like kickstart this cluster as a non-root user as well. So it could work in both the ways, but let's do it like let's kickstart the cluster in non root mode. So let me exit from here like as a root user. So now I am a Vagrant user itself. So let's start with the Vagrant user. So Minikube start followed by hyphen driver, and driver would be Docker. So let me run this. All right, so it is saying it's not found. Just give me a moment. Oh, typo again, my bad. Just give me a moment. Let me just, so instead of Minikube I have written, no worries. So now see again, it is not starting the cluster. It is saying that your user is not having permission, like you need to add it to a Docker group. So since we are like running it as a non-root user, so it is complaining about that. So I'll show you like what exactly it is saying. So if we do ID, so it is saying that this user is not belong to any of the Docker group. So even if you can check from the permission, this is not this user is not a part of Docker group. So what will happen? Let's say if we do Docker images. This is just a command to check whether this user is having. So this user will get the permission denied access, right? Now let me switch to our root user, and now if I do Docker images, so root as a root user, it is having all the access and privileges. Okay, and one more thing. Now earlier you have seen that I have started it as a non root mode. Now let me start it as a root. So Minikube start hyphen driver. So it remains same only. So it will also not start, it will complain. So see, now what it is saying that if you start it as a root, then you need to use that hyphen force option. So if I pass hyphen force, it will work. But no worries, I just wanted to showcase this to the viewers. So let me exit from this, and now for how can we use Vagrant to the Docker group? So no worries, command is already there. You just simply need to copy this and followed by Docker. So I'll tell you. So basically, we are modifying this user and adding Docker group to this particular user. And let me just enter it now. How would I check? If you do ID again and enter. So see, now you can see that this user is added to our Docker group. So previously it was not there. Let me show you where exactly. Yeah, when we did ID earlier, this was not added as a Docker user. Okay, so no worries. Now if we try to run Docker images, so it should allow. Okay, so now let's quickly like start the cluster. All right, so again we will do Minikube start hyphen hyphen driver is equal to Docker. So now it is starting the Minikube cluster for us, and basically it is like pulling two images. One is for control panel, and other one is the base image of the Kubernetes. So it will take some time, but it will like spin up the cluster for us. So we can run this in the force mode itself. Both are possible, but like this is the cleanest way of doing this. So one image is already done. Now it is quickly doing the like downloading the second image as well. So once this is completed, we will proceed with our further setup. So it is saying that the starting Minikube primary control panel node in Minikube cluster. Now it is creating the even though like if we run it without extending the memory and CPU, so that will slow down. Like it will complain for size and like we can also check like whether our installation is working or not. So here are the steps, but that we will cover in the second part. I'll just show you like how do we quickly test this. All right, so we are done. Let me just check for Minikube status. So it is saying everything is up and running, and if I do Minikube IP, so this will give me the cluster IP, right? Okay, and if I do, so now just coming back to the kubectl, so kubectl get nodes will tell us like how many nodes are there. So only Minikube node is available as a control panel in this one. Now if I do kubectl gets pod, so no pod is there. So pod basically it is the smallest unit which can be deployed in Kubernetes. So for our viewers who are not much acquainted with Kubernetes, you can consider it as a pod as a one or more containers group. Like you can consider a pod as a single container, or could have a multi container as well. So it depends. All right, so let us run some basic. Just a minute. Let me show you some more things. Let's kubectl get svc. Just checking whether any services are up or not. So IP cluster services up, which is a part of our default setup. Then let me check for Minikube logs. Again typo, just give me a moment. Minikube logs. So this will show us the logs and all. Alright, so since we are done, let me quickly show you how to check this setup. So the setup is working. I'll just wanted to run one container and show you how do we access it. IPATDR show. So just wanted to check the private IP of our server. So okay, this is this one. So let me just copy this. Alright, so this will be used. Let me copy this, and now kubectl run. So I'm just running one pod with my name itself. So it is like sod-test-pod followed by image would be nginx, and -- port would be 80. So if you do kubectl get pods, so it is saying that it has created that pod, but the status should be running. Then only we can like try to see. So see, now after sometimes initially it was under container creating, and then now so it has created one container for this one. Now let's check this. So in order to test this, we can simply, okay, let me bind this for our like so that we can access it. So engine, so that we can use, so kubectl, let's so I'm just trying to get into this pod itself. So kubectl log -f, and then I'll try to see. Alright, so right now what I'm checking is, I'm just checking the log of our pod which we have created. So you can get to see, so nginx is working. Okay, now how would I bind it so that we can like see whether it is actually working or not. So okay, let me do kubectl. So with the help of kubectl command we can do this. Port hyphen, port forward is also like in our Docker session, like when we want to map the port, we'll use port forward, and then followed by -- just a minute, one more, address. So address would be this only. So what I'm doing is I am mapping this pod. I'm binding my pod on this particular address so that I can access it, right? And followed by the name of pod. So name of pod is this one, and we want to forward it on let's say 900. So we have started it internally on 80. Yes, we have started it internally on 80, and now I just wanted to, let's do this port forwarding, and now we just copy this. So see, we are able to access it. Why I did all this, because by default it will like start on the local host itself, and since I am accessing it from my host machine, I need to port forward it in this way only. Yeah, so we are good with the setup part. We have tested out as well. So this is what I have planned for this particular session. We will cover one more session for this, wherein like we will be exposing one service and try to see whether it is working or not. But we are good to close this session. Thanks for watching this. Thank you.